There's a reason why.
Why would you go after this guy?
He's like, hey man, want a flower?
Why would you go after this guy?
There's a reason why.
He's like a hippie.
Why would you go after this guy?
Little weekend, yeah.
Come on!
Why would you go after this guy?
There's a reason why.
Why would you go after this guy?
He's like, hey man, want a flower?
Why would you go after this guy?
There's a reason why.
He's like a hippie.
Why would you go after this guy?
Little weekend, yeah.
Come on!
Why would you go after this guy?
There's a reason why.
Why would you go after this guy?
He's like, hey man, want a flower?
Why would you go after this guy?
There's a reason why.
He's like a hippie.
Why would you go after this guy?
All right. We are live. Welcome back to Reason Answers, everyone. You're home for the
crackhead clown individuals.
Got the why would you go after this guy intro playing today, because unfortunately we need to talk about J. Smith again. And every time we talk about J. Smith, a portion of the audience wants to ask one question and one question only. Why in the world would you go after J. Smith? So I will say, once again, this is not about going after J. Smith as a person. This is about holding Christians responsible for the arguments they make. He doesn't get a free pass being allowed to make up whatever nonsense he wants just because he is a Christian. That would be how Dawah is done. If you want to be a Dawah follower, then by all means, or at least Dawah style argument follower, by all means, feel free to follow J. Smith. I'm not telling you what to do. However, on this channel, we're about making intelligence arguments. We're about arguments that hold up to scrutiny. And J. Smith's arguments, while some of them might be viable, some of them are interesting, quite a lot of them are in fact complete nonsense. Either he has confused ideas in his mind, crafted stories in his mind, or is just flat out making stuff up. I don't know his motivation. I'm not going to speculate as to why he does what he does. But what I do know is that many of the things he says are just basic factual errors. Case in point, we got a new video out. The Quran is in the wrong language by Mary. His conclusions are wrong, yes, but that's not even what I'm talking about. He gets basic facts wrong. He says in 2018, Al-Jalad wrote a paper saying the Quranic Arabic, or the language of the Quran, is not in Hijazi Arabic, when in fact Al-Jalad didn't write any paper in 2018 about the language of the Quran. And the papers he did write were saying that Arabic was a normal language that developed like any other, and it's not Aramaic. J. Smith is claiming that Al-Jalad is saying that the Quran is written in Nabatean Aramaic, and Al-Jalad's not saying any such thing. We got Mary joining us today. Welcome,
hello.
Mary. Do you want anything else you want to say about your video?
I do recommend watching it, because one of his cornerstones, the cornerstones of his argument, is that the Quran is not from the Hijaz, right? And therefore, and a huge piece of evidence for that is that it's not in Hijazi Arabic. He is wrong. He's wildly wrong. The only language that the Quran was written in initially was the Hijazi dialect of Arabic. That is extraordinarily clear from recent research that was able to find out more about the history of different dialects of Arabic. And so the academic consensus is coming down on it not only being Arabic, but being a specific dialect. The reason that there had been a question is because people don't recite it in Hijazi Arabic. The way that people recite it today are all in different ways. It's called classical Arabic, but there are variations of classical Arabic, and there are systematic differences between the intention of the author and the original scribes and the way every Muslim today recites it. the early Western scholars assumed that the people giving the classical readings were actually reading the underlying text as it was originally written and just granting that to them. Then they were confused. They're like, well, this shouldn't be the right language. It's Arabic. They never questioned it was Arabic. No one with any kind of legitimacy ever suggested it was any language other than Arabic. Aramaic is not a kind of Arabic, just like French is not a kind of Spanish. So no one with two brain cells to rub together ever said it was anything but Arabic. Not even Christoph Luxemburg ever said that the Quran that we have now is a language other than Arabic, just to be clear. But it was a bit confusing because it's in a style that seems to be a later development. Going back to the rasam and back to the rhymes that are internal and back to the original dialect of the Hijaz, scholars have determined that indeed it was Hijazi. And because it's recited with certain different dialectical differences now, that things that used to rhyme and originally were meant to rhyme are broken now. Like parts of it don't work. Imagine if you have someone from a place that said, instead of saying fire, says far, and they rhyme it with the word far as in far away, and then somebody else is reading it and then they read da 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 fire, da 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 far. They don't rhyme anymore, right? And that is the kind of thing that has been unlocked through careful studying, not only of the text, but of the Quran, but also the Hadith have a number of things, because there are these little sayings that Muhammad has in them that have internal rhymes as well, showing that the original language of the people who created the Hadith, they also spoke this Hijazi dialect. And going out and saying very goofy things that no one ever said makes you look either deceptive or foolish. And we should not be either deceptive or foolish. We should be careful with the materials as much as we're able to. Everyone's going to make mistakes, but we should try to be careful with the materials and precise and accurate. And so we'll probably just transition into that at the end of the stream. It's not going to be a long stream because Thaddeus had a delay and I have to leave in a little bit more than 2 hours. So it's not going to be a terribly long stream to begin with.
All right.
So we'll see what we can do.
Yep. So I posted a link to that pinned in the chat there. Hope you check that out. And I'll put the link at the end and remind people to check it out at the end as well. Lambert says it's in the unclear dialect of Arabic. Yeah, that's because the author is a fraudulent fake prophet, revealing it little by little over time and contradicting himself, not because it is like in some other language or something. And Lambert was just making fun of the Quran's claim of being clear, not saying it was written in our language, but some people are like, oh, the Quran doesn't make much sense, but if you change it to Arabic, then it will make perfect sense. And that's just complete nonsense. John Wilson says, oh, there's a dislike. Tee-hee. I think you mean ta-ta-ta-ta. But yeah, it happens.
There you go.
Yeah, I forgot the ooh. Woo, ta-ta-ta. Anyway, it happens. Jay has his fans. Some a bit more excessive than others, and I just wanted. Here's the video. Right here's the Quran is written in the wrong language video. I just wanted to point out a couple of these comments, super quick. Just So as she says, Jay can't understand a language, and also Mel and Al-Fadi, who are elders and seniors, can she understand better? The language that you said Jay can't understand is English. Because you're actually being generous, right? Because you're saying that he just misunderstood what Al-Jalad is saying. The other possibility is that he's a fraud. I mean, those are the two possibilities, because Al-Jalad say anything about the language of the Quran. And he says that Al-Jalad says that Arabic adopted a script based on the Nabatean Aramaic script, that it was written by Nabateans, and that's just nonsense. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I mean, he doesn't understand how languages work fundamentally. He gets confused between script and like your writing system and language. And he's confused by linear time. An astonishing number of people are confused by time and geography, as I always mention. He thinks that the fact that something originated in a certain place 500 years before an event means that you must still be there in that place currently. Like, things never move, people never learn things, people never use things. So it makes every bit as much sense as saying that I am writing now in Latin because I'm using the Latin alphabet. It's just pathetic. And Mel has absolutely no grasp of any language at all except English, and even that in the most rudimentary sense, because he misunderstands English constantly. Al-Fadi, unfortunately, has made the choice to create a platform just to publicize various theories in a non-judgmental type of environment. So Al-Fadi puts out things that he does not believe are true. And people use Al-Fadi as if he is endorsing everything he puts out, but he knew what J. Smith said about the Sanaa manuscript was wrong. He even corrected him on the Birmingham manuscript in one, very, very briefly, probably because he was getting pushback for platforming him. He has made this decision to just want to be a platform for the making public various arguments. But unfortunately, this has resulted in people believing, and honestly, I assumed that before I looked into anything, like when I first listened to an early version of that language argument, it sounded absolutely insane to me. But I'm like, oh, but there's Al-Fadi, who's an Arabic speaker, sitting right there. So is it insane? And then I looked into it. I'm like, no, it's totally insane. I have no idea why Al-Fadi's sitting here listening to this. So
yeah, Al-Fadi, I think that, he values non-confrontation above all, right? He's applying some biblical principles. We can argue whether he's misapplying them or not, but he's like, you don't embarrass your brother and come out against him, and you don't sow division in the church, and so on and so forth. Now, of course, what Jay is doing is he's teaching things that are false. And to be clear, this isn't like unique to Jay, right? Al-Fadi will have on people with a variety of different views. Some would no doubt disagree with Jay, and he doesn't like push back against anyone.
Yeah.
So just the point is, don't take him as endorsing anything
that's on his. Just because it's on his channel does not mean he endorses it. Period. He just doesn't. And Houston, you are missing the point entirely. The Book of Mormon must be written in the 1600s because it contains.
Why are you reading it like that? Houston is supporting you.
But no. So
he's making fun of the
Well,
it's not exact equivalence, but he's making fun of the idea that because in this case he at least does mimic the style of 16th century English, right? Joseph Smith mimics the style of 16th century English. In this case, it's not even a mimicry. It's just it originated there. What the actual equivalent would be: the Book of Mormon was written in Rome because it uses the Latin script.
Right. No. So what happened with the Book of Mormon is that they were trying to imitate something older, and then they would say it with those older words and those older styles, right? This is the opposite. So again, by the way, if I could live anywhere in the United States and have the same income no matter what, I would choose the mountains, either Idaho or the Appalachian Mountains, because I love them. They're beautiful. However, my country bumpkin backwoods, Ozark, whatever, mountain people trope is about historically how these people were seen by most other civilizations. The people in the mountains were generally poorer objectively had less material wealth, they had less prestige, and their dialects were considered inferior by others. So this would actually be like someone writing something with a dialect of, someone way up in the mountains with a very kind of backwoodsy dialect, writing it as they pronounced it. But again, we have vowels in ours. But then people putting over it pronunciations that they think sound really fancy schmancy, like a Boston Brahmin. I cannot do that accent, but a Boston Brahmin throwing their accent on top of something that was actually written in backwoods. And then everyone 500 years later looking at this text that's read like a Boston Brahmin and going, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why is this a Boston Brahmin text? But then you look carefully at what is written and you go, wait a second, they're just imposing this Boston Brahmin on this backwoods type of dialect. That's what's really happening. So it's not that people who wrote it down were trying to do something more elevated. Muhammad was a snot about himself. He thought he was the hotness. He thought his dialect was the hotness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he thought he was the hotness. He thought his dialect was the hotness. So he used it. He was proud of it. His immediate followers used it and were proud of it. But the vast majority of Arabs thought they sounded like Hicks and didn't like it and changed how they read it. So it's the opposite of trying to sound like someone else. No, they wrote like themselves. And then other people are like, well, that's embarrassing, and read it differently. So that's why it is important.
Yeah, not really relevant, but I found it hilarious from Lambert here. When LDS missionaries prayed at my house, they went to King James English. When they stopped praying, they stopped using the King James English. Apparently, this is another thing that Mormonism and Islam have in common, that you got to pray in a particular language. that does sound a bit funny. So I just wanted to take the two more comments real quick. So Kevin, same guy, says gray hair can't lie. So apparently Jay Smith is incapable of making an error or lying, right? I didn't even accuse him of, neither I or Mary accused him of lying in this video, but he can't say something that's untrue because he has gray hair. Apparently Mary is fake Christian. I feel she is Muslima.
Yeah, and I have
this
no
is
hair.
totally irresponsible. This is ridiculous. Do you understand how ridiculous this attitude is, to say that someone is a fake Christian and a Muslima because they point out that Jay Smith said things that are untrue? Who is your God? Who is your God, Kevin? Because it seems to me that your God, the one who cannot lie, is Jay Smith. You're treating Jay Smith as an infallible semi-deity. Do you really think this is appropriate?
And just insulting my parents just because. I mean, pathetic.
Yep.
And then the usual calls for me to debate Jay. Well,
yeah,
he won't debate me.
You're willing to debate. He doesn't want to debate. Trinity Matrix here says, I suspect Muslims are flocking around Marian theists these days, alhamdulillah. Which is funny because there are two different Quranists on this video thanking me for debunking Jay Smith. Or I mean, sorry, not thanking me. Sorry, not thanking me. I misspoke.
Fighting against it. Yeah.
They're pushing back, saying, how dare you debunk Jay Smith? I misspoke, right? So there are two Quranists on this saying they would call themselves Muslims. They would say, oh, thank you. How dare you? I mean, how dare you refute Jay Smith? He's right. He's giving us license to reject the Hadith, to reject Muhammad and still be Muslims. Yes. Yeah, and we are passionate Mo lovers, Mary. We're passionate Mo lovers. The most passionate Mo lovers.
And keep in mind that Jay Smith has many followers among the Quranists and also in the areas that he's going to. In Africa, those are the hotbeds of new Quranism movements. So he's actually going there and helping out Quranism, and I have no idea why he is doing this. It is baffling. People are not leaving Islam because of his theories. Instead,
Well, I mean,
they're
we would say
taking,
they're technically leaving Islam, but
yeah,
they're not becoming Christians. They're
no,
becoming Quranists,
but
or as
that's
they would call
just
themselves,
another form.
Quran-only
Yep,
Muslims.
yep. So,
Yeah, and we're the most passionate Mo lovers. Us who get up here and say that Muhammad is a false prophet, possessed by demons, sick, perverted freak. We are the most passionate Mo lovers out there because we dared to question Jay Smith.
yeah. So it's just ridiculous. But again, this comes directly from what Jay Smith says, because he constantly paints anyone who disagrees with him as a Muslim,
Yep.
which is the most disingenuous and irresponsible and ridiculous and unethical thing that he could do. Is massively unethical. His behavior has caused this. His behavior has brainwashed people. The way he teaches creates cult-like followings, and it's bad. You should not teach in a way that causes people to be a cult-like follower of yours. Who, if someone said, "Hey, Mary made this bad argument here," I would be astonished if anyone went, "Ah, Mary can never be wrong," kind of thing, because I don't cultivate that. Jay Smith does. He is the expert. He knows everything, and everyone else who disagrees with him, well, they're just Muslims. That is a massive problem. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Agree with me or you're Muslim. That's all I wanted to share there. I
Yep.
just wanted to point out that there is a reason we keep doing this. The kind of atmosphere that Jay Smith has cultivated is not healthy. He himself is not willing to listen to these critiques, right? He'll give lip service about how he's so happy that people are responding to his arguments. Then he'll ignore the arguments, attack us personally, say he didn't attack us personally, and that he'll edit out anything that bothered us from the video.
Yep.
And then I say, that's not the point, Jay. The point is you revealed how you actually are thinking about us. I don't care. You can call me all kinds of names in the world. I'm not offended. It doesn't matter to me. You can do that. But it's very sad that that is the way that you want to behave. That's the kind of argument you want to make. And unfortunately, it's reflected in his audience. These arguments are not good. They are not beneficial to the kingdom, and we will speak against them. Again, not personal. I know Jay has said some nasty stuff about me in particular. I took the brunt of it.
Yep. He just doesn't want to mention me. It's like my name burns his tongue. So he just insults Thaddeus instead. I'm like, I'm out here firing shots at him all the time, and he's like, "She is the one who must not be named." So let's just say nasty things about Thaddeus for no reason. I'm like, dude.
Yeah, well, the reason that I said a bunch of nasty stuff about me is because I emailed him in private multiple times trying to, work things out. And as a result, I'm the one who is envisioned as attacking him. Now, if he had actually watched the videos, he probably would be much more hostile towards Mary than me. But he hasn't actually watched the video. He's gone on what other people have said about them and my emails to him. And unfortunately, he decided to attack me. So for me, it's not personal. Jay, it might be personal. For me, it's not personal. For me, it's about arguments.
Just stop teaching dumb things. Stop teaching stupid things.
Yeah.
Stop making other Christians look stupid because you're brainwashing Christians into repeating stupid things and looking like idiots in front of any intelligent human being. I honestly don't care how many atheists run around out there saying stupid things and looking like idiots, because atheists, knock yourselves out, look like idiots.
Exactly.
I don't want Christians looking like idiots. And what he is doing is making people look like idiots or like liars. And Christians shouldn't look like idiots or liars. That's my issue with them. That's it. That's it. You can take whatever approach you want to take. Don't make Christians look like idiots or liars. So.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking, right? Jay can continue to say that the historical evidence is questionable or whatever. That, while I would strongly disagree with, I wouldn't be making a big deal out of. But unfortunately, he goes around saying things that are just patently false and worse, teaching Christians to make arguments in this particular way which will never get you anywhere with someone with the slightest a bit of knowledge and or anyone willing to look up anything after you leave. Right? If you go up to some Muslim and they have no clue about anything, and you say the Quran was originally written in Aramaic and it doesn't make sense in the native Arabic and blah 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 blah, there's a chance they'll be like shocked, and they'll be really embarrassed, and they'll for a moment have some serious doubts. But then they go and they ask someone who speaks Arabic, is 20% of the Quran incomprehensible in Arabic? And they're like, no. Where did you get such a ridiculous idea from?
Here's
And we're like,
something that
well, can I
yeah.
test you and just point to some random verses and you tell me what they mean? Right?
And they
I
can, right?
And of course they can.
And here's the thing. I request that any Muslim or any Muslim, now I'm acting like Jay Smith. Goodness gracious, that anyone who thinks that full fifth of this cannot be understood in Arabic, give me one verse that is more than 5 words long in which you won't be able to read a fifth of it, like a substantial verse, one verse that's substantial in which 1/5 of the words are not comprehensible in Arabic. Find it for me. Because in reality, there are very few words that are not comprehensible on a literal level. And then there are a few additional words that where it's the interpretation of them that people differ on, like whether or not the sweepers in just a poetic section where Muhammad's swearing by everything, like by the this, by the that, by the this and that and this and that. And one of them he goes, by the sweepers. Well, what are the sweepers? Most people say they're stars. Some of them say that they are grazing animals whose necks are sweeping across the ground as they're grazing. Does it matter for the rest of the surah? It might mean he's a bad poet. If it's not clear whether or not you're talking about stars or animals, you might be a crappy poet. But for the rest of that passage, does it have an effect on comprehending the main point, which starts after all of his by the this and by the that, like all of the by the this and by the that, they could totally drop out and it wouldn't change the actual thing that is trying to be communicated, right? Because that's just how it is.
So Bartholomew asked if I got his email. Yes, I believe I did. I haven't replied to any emails in several days. I kind of took it easy over the weekend, enjoyed my birthday and such, but I'll get back into answering emails here shortly. Give me a couple days because I'm probably like close to 2 weeks behind, so it might take a little while to catch up, but I'm pretty sure I did see it in there. So expect a reply soon. Nicodemus says I was nasty about his behavior. I'm not sure if that means Robert or if he just accidentally typed his instead of her, meaning you. Either way, it doesn't really matter.
No, he meant I think he meant mainly Jay Smith. I think he meant mainly Jay Smith.
Yeah, that could be his reaction to it. I do regret that it was made out of passion, and that's fine, right? Regardless of who you're critical of, which it's not actually clear to me, but it doesn't matter because it's fine. This is a responsible thing, right? To have an emotional reaction and then later admit that your behavior was not the best is a very mature and appropriate thing to do. And, I have no problem with that. He does say that he meant Robert. And I think that's fine, right? I thought that, both Mary and Robert may have had moments they regret in that debate. But it was overall beneficial in that it kind of elevated the topic to the forefront of debate. I'm very glad that Robert did that. Robert and I are on good terms. Robert and Mary are on good terms. No hard feelings between any of us at this time. So all good there. And I'm glad that the debate took place. one other thing, Colossians 2 ministry says, hey, why are you guys talking about J. Smith? We're about to be raptured any second.
Yeah.
A joke.
I don't even
obviously.
know what goofball is running around claiming that another rapture is coming, but people do this like once every 3 years. It's pathetic.
Yep. Obviously a joke, but someone
Yep.
apparently claimed that today was the day of rapture. They still got like, I don't know, 18 hours if we go by like the last time zone to past midnight or something. They got a little while, but yeah, I'm going to go on a limb and say that we're not going to be raptured today. All right, let's get to this video. I should have. I just now realized I haven't shared it, so give me 1 second to do that. This was Mel and Jay's initial response to the debate between Mary and Robert Spencer that we were just referencing, and or Mary's material presented immediately after the debate. I say and or because they don't actually watch or respond to anything. And Jay certainly hasn't. He told me flat out he hasn't watched anything we've put together.
Oh, by the way, hi, Mel. He's watching every single video that we make. Just so you know, it's pretty funny. He's like pretending he isn't, but he is. And
so he's relying on
his, I occasionally download his what are they called? The transcripts and scan through them. Because I'm not gonna actually listen to him say silly things for that long. But yeah, he actually watches all of our videos and then is untruthful about it, which is kind of surprising. I don't understand why you would be untruthful about watching something that you are watching.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, so I don't think that he's untruthful about the contents necessarily. Yeah, he might not understand it or he might misrepresent it, but I don't think that's necessarily intentional.
No,
but he did
me.
flat out lie. Yeah, Mel did flat out lie when he said he hadn't watched it.
Oh, he's still watching these, by the way. He's still watching them.
Yeah.
And he's still lying about not watching them. So, Mel, why are you lying about not watching our videos? It's pretty pathetic.
Yeah, I don't have a problem if you're watching our
it.
videos. Just don't pretend that you're not. I don't consider you a stalker or whatever for watching our videos and seeing what we're doing. I think that's reasonable that you would see what your critics are saying about you. Just don't pretend that
to lie about it
above us and that it's pointless to watch or something. I mean,
yeah, it's
if you don't want to give us any credit, then just don't say anything at all. Don't lie about it. I know why he's
lying, because he doesn't want any of his followers to watch our videos. So he's like, I don't watch them. Don't watch them. But then he references them quite frequently. And he's not referencing anything else.
All right. So we got this video. Mel and Jay confront and respond to 30 erroneous Muhammads in the 7th century.
Well, here we are back again. One of my favorite friends, Mel, from across the ocean, across the pond. Mel, so good to see you again. Thanks for coming back on board. I've asked Mel to come specifically because there we're finally getting some rebuttals. People are starting to rebut what we're saying, which is good. Now, unfortunately, not.
I just want to point out that this is, in fact, not a new development. Muslims, atheists have been rebutting him as well. Atheists as well have been rebutting him for years. Saying this is nonsense. Relevant academics in the field have, while they might not have directly used his name, have said these ideas are nonsense. I mean, they've definitely gotten pushback before now.
And he knows that he has, because he responded to someone who said his theory about a guy named, oh gosh, I forget what his name was, but he was claiming that one of these guys was his, was the real Muhammad, a Mockmed king, and someone was just mocking him, saying that the only thing they have in common with Muhammad is that they led humans. They were leaders of human beings. There's no other similarity. You might as well say that George Washington is Muhammad. And then in response to that, Jay Smith put out this whole video, which was just incoherent, about how we have more historical information about George Washington than we do about Muhammad. So you shouldn't compare them. And it's just like, do you
Totally
understand
missed the
English?
point.
That's not the point. Do you understand English? But he has been rebutted by practically people of every description, and he just pretends that he isn't. He just pretends that people have no answer.
Cargo says, just so you know, Mel's a likable guy. He's a charming guy, so attacking him is not a great Jay. Well, I mean, Jay is an extremely likable guy. He's extremely charismatic. He's a fantastic speaker. So what? It doesn't matter how likable someone is. If what they say is untrue, it's untrue.
And I don't care how much you like Mel and how much he pretends to be charming. He behaves in ways that are massively problematic. He called himself Christ in multiple posts, which he later deleted because I guess somebody went, "Hey, dude, quit calling yourself God." It's just not a good look. His approach is bad. His view of himself is wild. And yeah, guess what? Very charming people are often like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's ever been a cult leader that wasn't charming. Let's put it that way. I'm not suggesting that Mel is a cult leader, but just because someone is a charming guy doesn't mean anything. No one's going to go follow a cult leader who isn't charming. So what? Does that mean that it's wrong to attack cult leaders now?
Not Muslims, it's other Christians who are rebutting us. Raymond Ibrahim is the one that I am actually engaging with, and it looks like we're going to be doing a debate on August the 21st, Thursday, August the 21st, as I recall. Not on the Quran and not on Mecca, the two easiest things for us as historians of the
he flat out admits, right, that he can't really defend his Muhammad didn't exist position, but it is the most central position to him.
Well, he also cannot possibly defend even slightly, even a little bit, the Quran and his position.
Oh, of course not. The only one he can at least kind of sort of defend is Mecca, and that's because that just was a tiny little insignificant village. There's not a lot of evidence for it. Okay, big whoop-de-doo, right? For years and years, probably 2 decades, every lecture, he'd be like, the man in the book, the man in the book, the man in the book. 5 years ago or so, he started saying man, book, and place, and now the place is the only thing that matters because he thinks that's the thing he can actually defend. But if Muhammad was born some other place, say Petra for the sake of argument, that he was born and grew up in Petra, and it became known as Mecca over time, so what? That doesn't change anything about the story. It's insignificant in comparison to whether Muhammad is the founder of Islam and whether the Quran originates with him. Neither of those things Jay can actually really debate on. Plus, I mean, he's like saying this is like it's some kind of fault of Raymond, right? His interest was that Muhammad is a historical figure. He's not obligated to debate some other topic because Jay thinks that topic would be easier for Jay to debate.
Jay didn't even offer to debate him on those topics.
I know, so Jay proposed the debate too.
Jay set the topic, and then he's acting like, oh, poor little me. Why am I being forced to defend the thing that I've been saying for 30 years that I'm still unable to defend?
Weird.
Origins of Islam. Mel has a whole YouTube site called The Origins of Islam, and you've got to go on it. I'll put the URL right here down below us. And his whole area is this narrative. How did Islam begin? And I've been doing this, Mel, since 1995. So I've been doing this for 30 years. So this is our bread and butter. And we can't get Muslims really to debate us on the preservation of the Quran or on the existence of Mecca. Muhammad.
I guarantee you could. The reason you can't get a Muslim to debate you on the preservation of the Quran is because you make them defend letter for letter, dot for dot, perfect preservation, a ridiculous standard that no one could defend. You could easily get a debate with either a moderate Muslim like who is willing to concede that perfect preservation is a myth, or with an academic on this topic, because literally this is the easiest topic in the world to defend. This is even easier to defend than the historical Muhammad, I think.
Yep.
I mean, you can debate. They're both incredibly easy, but
yeah, he will
it's not
not debate.
ambiguous. There was a Quran in the 7th century.
Correct. And he will not debate, is there a Quran in the 7th century? The only topic that he will debate is, has the Quran been unchanged letter for letter, dot for dot? That's switching out. And yeah, it was a lie that Muslims publicized to convince the ignorant, stupid masses that Islam is true by lying to them. But because they all know that this lie isn't true, they're not going to debate the lie, but claiming that if it is not letter for letter, dot by dot preserved, blah, 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 it doesn't exist at all, is nonsense and pathetic.
Is earliest Hadith 200 years after the Quran? No. The canonical collections are roughly 200 years after the Quran, but the same Hadith found in the canonical collections existed before they were canonized.
Yep,
so that's like that would be equivalent to saying that the Torah didn't exist until it was canonized in the 1st century, right?
Yep. So, yeah, that's just false. And Al-Zuri, a lot of things that were written and compiled didn't survive. Even things that were passed around because they weren't as exhaustive as people taking from more complete later sources were. So Al-Zuri in the early 8th century, less than 100 years after Muhammad's death, he was writing, like putting out complete works for people to study. So were others. Things from the 8th century survive in fragments as well. And some things survive in their complete form, some within other manuscripts, and others as a standalone. They exist, but you get lied to and told that they don't.
So Michael said, never heard of a moderate Muslim. I meant specifically on this specific issue, not necessarily on all things. And historically, most Muslims didn't hold the perfect preservation. That's a modern invention. So it is certainly a position that Muslims could legitimately hold today, that the Quran is not perfectly preserved, dot for dot, letter for letter. And I think that many of the very popular Muslim apologists actually do hold that. They're just afraid to state it in public.
We haven't really broached that much. In fact, we've not talked much about Muhammad, have we, Mel?
Not of late, I suppose. We've looked at.
Even Mel could affirm that. Jason, we barely talked about Muhammad. I don't know why they're talking about why they want to focus on the subject of who's Muhammad. We barely talked about that. And then Mel's like, well, I guess if you only look at the last week, we haven't talked about it very much. Because of course it's been the primary focus of Mel, like his long before he even was working with Jay Smith. His whole focus was finding out who the real Muhammad was. That's been his primary focus, and it's been the primary focus of Jay until very recently as well, was the figure of Muhammad. So we barely talked about it. The storytelling, just notice the storytelling.
The title Mockmed last year quite a bit, but
that's just been this year we're doing that, though. We're not really taking on Muhammad. I guess the reason we don't really take on Muhammad is because how do you disprove somebody? You have to prove somebody, not disprove it. That's the difficulty, because there are so many people with that name who were warriors, who claimed to be prophets. Everybody.
Okay, stop.
Who was a leader of men.
Okay. Oh, wait. Just actually go back about 10 seconds and let him finish. Everyone who is a leader of men claimed to be prophets at that time. If you go back like 10 seconds.
Though we're not really taking on Muhammad. I guess the reason we don't really take on Muhammad is because how do you disprove somebody? You have to prove somebody, not disprove it. That's the difficulty, because there are so many people with that name who were warriors, who claimed to be prophets. Everybody in the 7th century who was a leader of men claimed to be prophets. So you cannot really prove or disprove him, but you can't really.
So everyone who led men
Mhm.
claimed to be a prophet. That is the inspiration for today's title, that phrase there. Everyone who led men. So priests, for example, lead a congregation. They lead some staff members. They were claiming to be prophets. Military generals certainly lead men. Every military general was claiming to be a prophet. Of course, all the kings and governors and local city leaders and whatnot, they were all claiming to be prophets. The leader of your artisan guild, he was claiming to be a prophet. Everyone was claiming to be prophets in the 7th century, apparently. I guess the father leading his family was claiming to be the prophet of his family.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there are tons of Mohammeds running around. So please give me a source other than multiple attestations of the same event saying that they were led by that they were followers of Muhammad, referring to, you know, the Muslims. Where are all these other Mohammeds? He's already admitted that he can't name any of them, that he has none of them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he said the thing in the title. Yep. And
Well,
much less that everybody's
hold on a second, Mary, because there's extreme irony here.
Mm-hmm.
Because at one time, he's like, there's tons of people named Muhammad, but at the same different time, he'll say no one was named Muhammad. It's not a name at all. It's a title
for Jesus
that was used for Jesus. So which is it?
So yeah, which is it? Is it a title for Jesus, or is everyone running around here named Muhammad? And also, whenever they talk about people who were followers of Muhammad killing people, do they mean followers of Jesus? Jay Smith, do they mean followers of Jesus? When they say that these people came out to kill us and that a prophet had arisen and that they were the Arabs of Muhammad, are they saying that they are Arabs of Jesus? Or is this now suddenly a prophet's name and there are tons of them and they're everywhere? He doesn't have a coherent story. They're all prophets. Who are the other prophets who are leaders of men at this time? I will forget the 7th century. Let's go back to the 6th and 7th century. Please name for me all the people who were prophets who were leaders of men. Because what you will find is that you have Muhammad, and then you have some other weirdos out there in Banu Hanifa. Because I really think that the weird cult form of religion in Banu Hanifa is probably the main source of Muhammad's ideas about what quote unquote Christians believed. And they had prophets. They weren't violent until Muhammad started killing them, but they had Musaylama, and then after he was killed, somebody else, a woman and someone else declared herself to be a prophet later on. So we actually had two sets of prophets out in this particular weird tribe, and that's all we've got for this period. And guess what? They're both Arab tribes, and they're both from the same general cultural milieu, where they're outside of the centers of the empires in the Najd and in the Hijaz. And so they have cultural similarities there. But even then, you only have, you've got the two rival prophets popping up. Musaylama was probably even before Muhammad. Muhammad was probably the rival to Musaylama. But guess what? They're never called. They're never called Muhammad. They have their own names. Mm-hmm. So it is a disaster in terms of his theory, because again, his theory rides on the idea that there are all these people running around calling themselves prophets. Find them, locate them. Don't just say, because we have these sources that are all talking about the same event, I'm going to pretend that they are multiple people because that appeals to me. No, find any actual evidence other than your own feelings that there are multiple prophets being talked about at this time. And this kind of completely irresponsible statement Everyone who led men in the 7th century called themselves a prophet. Look at his confidence. Everyone who led men in the 7th century called themselves prophets. And it is just made up. It's imaginary because it sounds good for his thesis. He just makes things up.
Mhm.
And this is his overall approach.
Yeah, unfortunately, he constantly engages in this storytelling, and history becomes whatever it needs to be for his story. In this case, he needs there to be many Muhammads, so everyone was named Muhammad. It was a very common name. In a different version of his story, he needs it not to be a name at all, so of course no one was ever named Muhammad, and he says both with the same level of complete confidence, so casually that you don't even realize the claims he's making, right? I don't think that any J. Smith fan realized that he both said that there was many people named Muhammad and no one named Muhammad, but in fact he has, and at least one of those must be false. You can't have many and none at the same time. I suppose they could both be false, and you could just have a few. It could be an extremely rare name, but it can't be none and many at the same time.
Disprove him. You have to prove him. And that's why we've not really dealt into Muhammad as much. Also, it gets very emotional for Muslims when you debate Muhammad.
Okay, stop. It's very emotional for Muslims if you debate Muhammad. So that's why I haven't debated him. I haven't debated him because, Muslim feelings. He doesn't want to hurt the Muslim feelings to talk too much about Muhammad because it hurts their feelings. No, he hasn't debated Muhammad because he has no arguments that will hold up. And when he did do that quote unquote debate with Raymond Ibrahim.
Raymond, yes.
Yeah, when he did the debate with Raymond Ibrahim, he just distracted. He did not make any arguments. And again, I would like to share with you my little short, abbreviated, including only some sources, graph. Because guess what? The sources explicitly say that Saracen and Tayaye are synonyms for Arab used in different regions. So yes, all these sources say that these guys are Arabs and no one else. They all the ones with the X talk about Muhammad in some transliteration of their own language. And I actually should have Pseudocebius marked there and don't. Oh wait, I do have it for Muhammad. All right, I'm just reading the wrong one. My eyes are crossing on me. They're tricking on me. They talk about their violence. They talk about prophet or apostle, but they're all talking about the same figure. There is no awareness in any of these sources that there are multiple prophetic figures who caused people to come out of the desert. Not one. Not one. And they are consistently described when they are given details that they are in opposition to Christianity. But for J. Smith, these people are not trustworthy in terms of being honest narrators. I'm not talking about whether or not they are fully accurately reporting because of their knowledge of the accuracy. No, just at the level of, are they lying? For J. Smith, these people must be lying. They are just flat out lying. So, and that's what Mel spends his time doing, going, oh, well, the Maronite Chronicle, it doesn't really mean that they are against Christianity. It can't mean that because they prayed in Christian places. Well, guess what? What's the Hagia Sophia today? It is stolen as a mosque because Muslims are thieves and always have been. No matter what name they ran under, they've always been thieves because they are children of Satan. So yes,
and in fact, it's important to the Muslim mindset to pray in places that were formerly belonged to other religions, not just Christianity, but other religions in general, because it shows your dominance. It shows that you have conquered the so-called fake gods of that other religion. And just to be clear, this video respond to 30 erroneous Muhammads. They mean this chart, that
They
chart
mean
that
this
Mary
chart.
was just showing.
What-
They,
that
they're
I-
responding to this chart, and you see none of the sources, even in Mary's own chart, they have an X in every single column. So they must all be describing different figures, because there isn't one source that knows every single detail about Muhammad.
It's so pathetic. It's so pathetic. And the reason why this chart upsets them is because it's easy to distort, misrepresent, and give you the wrong impression when you cherry pick. When you sub cherry pick, like the Maronite Chronicle, where you take the bits that you like and you ignore the parts that you don't like.
Exactly. It's very easy to craft an argument when you get to ignore whatever you want to ignore and
Yep.
cherry pick out the rest. I mean, that's exactly how Dean Responds finds Muhammad in the Bible. We just went through this a couple of days ago, so it's at the top of my mind. But he's like, if you look at just verse 4, 9, 11, and 14, it perfectly describes Muhammad, as long as you leave out all the other verses. And ignore that it says God
Yeah.
in those
Yep.
verses. So part of those verses and all the rest of the verses you throw out, and then it perfectly describes Muhammad. Oh my goodness. But that is essentially the same thing that they're doing here, right? They're like, well, this one, it says the name Muhammad, but we can throw it out because it doesn't mention that he's a prophet. In this one, does say he's a prophet, but doesn't know his name, so we can throw that one out or whatever, right? They'll come up with some excuse to ignore every single source.
And by the way, this chart stops because I ran out of room. That's why it stops. That's why it's as long as it is, because I ran out of room, and I left out some that are within this time period and deal with some things, but don't necessarily, that where they're talking, for example, about you unbelievers, that the things about the prophecies of the coins aren't even on here, or not the prophecies, but neither is the prophecy of the coins, but that's later. But the early people saying that they kept the coins, because I didn't have a really great date for that. All you can say is that it's before the change was made. So since I didn't have a great date, I didn't put it on this chart. There are other sources that talk about other aspects that don't chart as neatly or nicely into this, so I left them out. But this is a general survey of as many sources that dealt with some of these issues up until the 670s, where I ran out of room.
No, your brother in Christ says hello to all you East Plano Islamic Center people.
Nice. All right, let's go ahead and start up the video again. Yep.
All right. So they are responding primarily to that chart. And I also wanted to say that Diamond here says that Jay made some arguments in the debate. I asked him to name one, and so far he has not been able to.
I suppose the thing is, it's the link between Muhammad and the stories is the crucial bit. We may not be able to prove the negative, but we can actually say, well, is this person linked to the places and events that the standard Islamic narrative describes? And that's something we can actually either say yes or no to.
How?
So,
In what way?
Well, in a way, Mel is correct, right? So in a way, he's correct in that he worded it poorly. But what he's trying to say is, well, you might not technically be able to prove someone didn't exist, but you can say whether or not there's a cohesive story, whether all the pieces fit together or not. What he leaves out is, or does an alternate theory better explain it? Because just because you say that this theory doesn't perfectly explain everything, doesn't automatically mean that there's a better theory or that that person didn't exist, right? So someone could, and atheists do, right? Someone could take like the early Christian writers writing about the Bible and see some minor inconsistencies between them. They're human beings. They have different impressions. They have different ideas, and they could argue, well, we just have no idea what they believed. It wouldn't be a very good argument, though, because you could, if you were objective, you'd say, well, they agree on all the main points and they just have some minor differences between them, as is normal. Human beings interpret things slightly differently.
And
What you find
yeah.
in the what you find in the descriptions of Muhammad is you do find different people describing things differently because they're all writing from their own perspective. They're all writing, none of them are writing from an Islamic perspective. They describe Muhammad a bit differently than the way Muslims describe him. But is it consistent with that? Yes or no? And is there a better explanation? Yes or no?
And what is ridiculous is, well, we don't have anything from that place. Well, again, I mentioned it's in Hijazi Arabic. The Quran, the early Ahadith, or the Ahadith show evidence that the language that the people were speaking was a Hijazi dialect. That's already
Mary,
bit you in the backside.
The original palm leaves that people temporarily wrote the Quran on to memorize and then threw away, that. Or else it couldn't have been done in Mecca.
And keep in mind, guys, that there were multiple northern Arabic dialects, and Hijazi is the dialect in contrast to those northern dialects that's well attested. And it's the Hijazi dialect that is the one that the Quran matches, not any of the northern ones. The dialects over in Oman, I think, are very poorly attested at this time. And of course, there are other languages spoken there. So they're actually called modern South Arabian, and it's kind of super confusing because they're just as ancient as ancient South Arabian, but they continue to be spoken into modern times. So they get called modern South Arabian, and they're another sister family. But there were Arab speakers there. Those dialects are not terribly well understood, but the Quran is in Hijazi Arabic. Period. We're done. That is a match.
Mm-hmm.
The sources that talk about the emergence of the caliphate with any level of knowledge are in a total agreement that the first capital was Medina. So they came from somewhere. They emerged as a power in Medina and then conquered other places. And that the first caliph, other than Ali, who spent all of his time in Kufa, but then the Umayyad Caliphate made a difference by not returning to Medina as their center of power, which is where like Uthman and Umar were murdered, but instead setting up in Damascus, in contrast to previously being in Medina. Why were they in Medina? Why were they there? What were they doing there? Why were they running around there? There was nobody else who was in charge of Medina at that time. They were. There are ample inscriptions beginning in the 7th century along pilgrimage routes to Mecca. In the 7th century, pilgrims were going to Mecca from other places. Yeah, you know what? There is one point in which blind pig gets an acorn, are correct that the setting up of the Dome of the Rock was meant to be an alternative place for people to do Hajj to. That was the hope, because then you could have it very close to your capital where you have control over it and go, well, we already, the Muslims already think that this is an important location. Maybe I can trick them into saying that it's good to do Hajj here, and it didn't stick. Instead, people continued to go out to the middle of nowhere to this really stupid little structure that wasn't even built with square corners because it was built by complete incompetence out of basically rubble, and circle around it. I mean, it was embarrassing to go there. These people are going from the greatest empires in the world with the spectacular constructions out to a rubble block structure that's not even square.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not, it's not conducive to the excellence of an empire. Makes none of the theories of them putting it there make any sense whatsoever, because what you want is something central to where you are, that reinforces your own power, that other people can't easily swoop in and steal away from you and create breakaway states. You want something that increases people spending money near your capital, spending time near your capital, coming under your sway, being impressed by you. Guess what? When people went to Mecca, they were not impressed. They weren't impressed in the 7th century or the 8th century or the 10th century. They were like, oh, wow. And if they were really emotional, they could still get swept away emotionally. But it was a very unimpressive place.
That's why they had to make sure to copulate with a camel before they ended their Hajj.
There we go.
John Wilson says 5 dislikes now. Is this a record? Well, certainly not for total. It is very, very fast to have 5 dislikes. I checked the last time we did one of these streams, it eventually got 11 dislikes, but some of those would have been after the live ended, probably half of them after the live ended. I'm sure that my most watched stream probably has the most dislikes of any of them. Nicodemus said there are 6 for my birthday. Yeah, after 8.5 hours, not after 1 hour. Right? Looks like guys may have anti-reasoned answers groupies. And I am getting more dislikes on all of my videos now. Either because I've attracted new Muslims to the channel, or because Jay Smith groupies are disliking every video, whether it has anything to do with Jay or not. I don't know. I don't really care. I actually use the dislikes historically as a measure of how much interest Muslims have in the topic. So they're very beneficial for letting me know which topics actually bother Muslims. Now, I know that in this case, obviously, it isn't Muslims that are doing it, but I'm all for the dislikes. And in that spirit, I'm starting a new poll. Have you disliked the video? You can say, no, I've liked it, or yes, I didn't have enough characters to write what I really wanted to write. So I wrote, I love Jay like my kids, but I really wanted to say, I love Jay Smith as I love my own family, because, you know, Muslims are always like, I love Muhammad like I love my own mother. But that was the maximum characters I could use. So you'll just have to understand what that's a reference to. All right, let's get back to this video.
And that's what we're doing. And that's exactly why we're moving towards Muhammad. And I think another reason is because Muslims are finally admitting that they can't prove Muhammad's existence, not use.
What Muslim has admitted that? This is gaslighting nonsense. No Muslim has admitted they can't prove Muhammad. What is he implying? That if Mary and I and Raymond Ibrahim, who he mentioned explicitly, even though this video is a response to Mary, if we're saying that Muhammad exists, but the Muslims can't even prove it, what does that implicitly say about us? Why do you think his fans come in here and act the way they do? You figure that out.
Using their traditions, not using their sirah in the Hadith and the other tafsir and tal, but mostly the sirah, his biography, and the Hadith, what he says. They just don't have the historical evidence for it anymore. And of course, you know, the 2 great scholars, Yasir Qadi and Shabir Ali, the 2 of them have now come out in just the last few weeks admitting.
Scholars.
I mean, Yasir Qadi is definitely considered a top Islamic scholar among Western academics anyway. Maybe not among Muslims, but he didn't come out and admit that Muhammad didn't exist or that you can't prove Muhammad or anything remotely like that. Neither did Shabir Ali. What they both, quote unquote, admitted is that this nonsense about perfect preservation, right down to the letter, is nonsense. And that and in Yasir Qadi's case, that the academics don't view the Hadith chains or the Hadith methodology as reliable. He doesn't say anything about the existence of Muhammad. He doesn't say anything about the historicity of Muhammad. He says that they don't view the chains as reliable, which by consequence, they don't think that, generally speaking, these are word for word the exact thing that Muhammad said, but that doesn't rule out the possibility, and academics will legitimately disagree on this point. It doesn't rule out the possibility that These are historical ideas that date back to Muhammad. Generally, scholars will say, there are some scholars who say it's just so worthless that you just have no idea. Others will say, well, we have a pretty good idea about some things and not others. And then others will say most of it is reliable. That is a legitimate point of debate. But none of them, even the ones that are saying you can't trust a single thing found in any hadith, are arguing that Muhammad didn't exist.
Correct.
This is just nonsense.
It is complete nonsense, and it's misrepresentation. If you go and listen to them, again, we need to be honest. And it is not honest to say that, oh, they're saying that they can't prove Muhammad. No, they're saying that the Islamic methods of, Yasser Qadhi is just saying that the Islamic method of isnad and matan is not respected by Western scholars. That's all he's saying. He's not even saying
he even goes on and says, but we know it's a good methodology.
Right.
Anyway.
Right. So all he's saying is that they won't take it as argument. He still believes in it, even though it's nonsense. He believes that it's a valid way of doing things. So keep in mind, even he is not saying that it's wrong. He's saying that Western academics won't accept this wonderful, brilliant science that only the Muslims came up with, but it's brilliant and wonderful, right? That's what he's saying. So don't misrepresent him. Don't misrepresent people to try to make yourself like you're making better arguments. All right, let's keep going.
It's good to see Christians taking us on. And what I would have asked Mel to do is to just spend this afternoon, we're going to go through and
I just want to connect the dots there. The Muslims are admitting they can't prove Muhammad. So it's good that the Christians are taking up his defense.
That's very weird.
Uh-huh.
It's honestly really condescending is what it is.
Yeah.
And this whole thing.
He says he's glad, but what he's really trying to say is that we're complete morons because even Muslims are admitting this is stupid.
And Jay Smith is one of the most massively condescending people that I've ever listened to. And it is really massively disrespectful how he speaks of other Christians. And he should repent bluntly. Like the way that he treated Raymond Ibrahim, just the sneering and condescension, misrepresentation, running from place to place in public and saying just ridiculous things about him. Shameful.
Yeah, Jay was invited to present his latest research at a church he has some sort of connection to. I don't know the exact connection, but a major large church that he has some sort of connection to. He's invited to present his latest research. And then, he got mad at Raymond. So he takes his entire 2-hour presentation and frames the whole thing as a response to Raymond Ibrahim, who probably 99% of the audience had never heard of in their life. And then he makes some random guy in the audience be Abdul to stand in place for Raymond. Right. So some random guy who's a Christian, no doubt, there to hear the talk on Islam, he labels them as Abdul and then says, you'll be Raymond's representation here.
Yeah.
Really?
A Coptic Christian from someone from a line of people who have been more abused and mistreated by Islam than Jay Smith can even comprehend. And he's calling him Abdul. Like, shame on you. Just shame.
That people are saying. And almost all of them are Muslims, but some Christians have taken on their claims for them and are being advocates for the Muslims.
And also, lie.
That's fine. We don't have
absolute disgusting lie. We are not taking on claims of Muslims. That is a lie. And we are not advocates.
We're certainly not advocating for them.
That is a lie. Jay Smith is lying. And this is the first time I've said it publicly. Jay Smith is lying here. He knows he is lying. He is doing it willfully because he is arrogant and does not want to be challenged. He does not want his untruths to be uncovered. He does not want his words to be analyzed. He is lying and smearing people who disagree with him. It is disgusting and despicable.
Mm-hmm. And since he invoked Yasser Qadhi, I'm going to invoke Yasser Qadhi here.
What the hell? I mean,
How dare you, Jay Smith? How dare you say that we are advocating for the Muslims on their behalf?
A problem with that, because at least somebody is trying to confront us on Muhammad. And so we're going to take each one of those claims. We're not going to say who said what, because there's a multiplicity of people who are making these claims.
Nope, he's
And then
not
we're
going to
just
say
gonna
it because
go
he's
and
scared of me.
and
Because he's trying to represent me, but he's doing it by distorting and lying about what everybody's saying at this point. And yeah, I'm being mean. I'm using the word lying. If he says who said what, he would have some accountability for his words by saying, we won't say who's saying what. We won't say it. That means he can pretend that people say
Right. So
whatever
if he
wants them
misrepresents
to.
you, right? If
Right.
he misrepresents you, he can say, well, that part was about someone else if he's challenged on it.
Yep. And that is incredibly dishonest and disreputable. It is shameful.
and be able to rebut each one of these claims. And some of them are this. Some of them have come out in the last few weeks concerning the coins. One of the first things are the coins. Now, we have shown the coins, and we've shown many of the coins of Mu'awiyah, especially Mu'awiyah, haven't we? And what have you noticed about the coins of Mu'awiyah, Mel?
Many of them, huh? Many of them. He said we've shown many of the coins.
And that's just not true. He cherry picks very few.
I think he showed 2 coins. One of which isn't actually Mu'awiyah's.
Oh, well, he's shown like...
I mean that he says are
yeah.
not total, right? He's shown more different coins, but I think he shows 2 coins that he claims are Mu'awiyah, and one of which is not. I don't in this case I don't blame him, because I think that someone else's error of attribution. But he says we've shown many of his coins.
The big standout is the fact that you find Mockmed on the coins, but also crosses. Plentitude of crosses. And that doesn't tally with the standard Islamic narrative. You can have one or the other, but not the two together, because they're mutually exclusive.
The comeback has been, and what Muslims have said is, not a problem if there are crosses there, because there were so many Christians in the kingdom. And if Mu'awiyah had taken off the crosses, because they've always been there, with the earlier Byzantine coins, which is interesting because the Byzantine coins don't have meant holding crosses, having a cross above their head on either hand. They just have them holding an orb with the cross on it.
Stop. So
what a freaking joke. Okay.
I mean, he's just lying about this. And I've gone over this one in a lot more detail, but he, again, just lying. This is just flat lying, because these 3 men each have a cross on their heads. Maybe his ancient eyes are failing him at this point, but if he cannot see the crosses, then perhaps he should not be teaching about them. They each have a cross on their heads. They each have an orb with a cross. And on the back, that is the special discovery of the cross. That is the true cross coin that Heraclius had minted. That is the true cross coin, the cross coin of all cross coins, the most spectacular of the cross coins, in which there is a singular cross which has extra decorations on the ends, which is placed upon like this stepped pedestal to really show how fantastic it is. So that those are the most cross coins of cross coin, is the one that he's saying that's not really that much of a cross coin, aside from which it's a different coin.
Yeah, and if there's 1 cross on it, there's a cross on the coin. Why does there have to be 20 crosses, or it doesn't count? I mean, this is
aside
just
from the
so
fact
silly.
that there are 10. There are literally 10 on this.
It's so silly. Like, he's spinning a narrative, right? Again, this is what Jay does. He spins a narrative. He could have said, unlike the Christian coins, which have plenty of crosses on them or something. But instead, because he wants to emphasize how weird it is that there's crosses on the other coin, he says, and this one barely has any crosses. They're not holding crosses. They're just holding an orb that has a cross on it.
Even though there are 3 crosses on the heads, there are 3 crosses on the orbs, and it is the true cross coin that was minted in the commemoration of retrieving the true cross from the Persians. Like, it is the most cross coin of any cross coin that exists. J. Smith just has to spin a fake story about it that, again, is utterly disreputable about himself and his claims. If you will look at mine, here's the one that is supposedly the super duper crossy coin.
1 second. There you go.
And notice how distorted and messed up the crosses are on this front side. They're all messed up and distorted. They're barely crosses. Why? Because he doesn't want to really have the cross at all. That M is the amount of money. Not only that, but these aren't even Muawiyah's coins originally, as I showed you before. Most of them are relatively heavy, suggesting an issue of 647 to 658. Muawiyah became crowned in 661. So these are pre-Muawiyah coins, overwhelmingly. This supposed that has Muhammad on it in the place of the in the place of the mint mark. All it replaces is the name of the city. The only thing that gets replaced is the name of the city gets replaced with Muhammad's name. And, keep in mind, they're Crusader coins that talk about this. Halab probably means Aleppo. Then these have things
those
like...
are clearly Jewish coins, Mary. They got a Star of David on them.
Well, they're in Arabic, and they talk about the commander of the faithful, who is a Muslim commander.
They're Jewish
and with a Muslim title.
Muslim coins.
Yeah.
These Crusaders were Jewish Muslims.
The Crusaders were Jewish Muslims. And again, here is the actual same coin. This is a 40 nummus of Heraclius, which have clearer, more precise, and less messed up crosses. And then we have the supposedly super Christian one that's all the crosses are whack, and it replaces the name of the mint. And we also have, again, there had been a tradition of de-Christianized types where they made the crosses completely unrecognizable into other figures and tried to make those during the time of the Umayyad Caliphate, or excuse me, at the Rashidun Caliphate, before the Umayyads. So before the Umayyads. Right? And this one that's recognized as Uthmanic is Sasanian on one side, with Muhammad is the messenger of Allah on the other side. I have shown you multiple times. The Zoroastrian ones had Zoroastrian religious symbols. So if it is incompatible for someone who is not Christian to have Christian symbology, it is also incompatible for someone who is not Zoroastrian to have Zoroastrian symbology. So then you have people who are both Zoroastrian and Christian at the same time, according to J. Smith, or otherwise what he is saying is false. What he is saying is untrue. It is not true that it is incompatible to have other religious symbols and be a Muslim. Okay? So either what he's saying is true, and they were simultaneously Christian and Zoroastrian, which is stupid and impossible, or else he is saying something that is demonstrably false. He made it
okay,
up.
so maybe theoretically speaking, the Christian could allow, not under the specific things Jay actually says, but if it were only saying because they can't have non-Muslim imagery on it, maybe Christians can allow non-Christian imagery. So maybe the Zoroastrian coins could be printed by a Christian, but they couldn't be printed by a Muslim.
That's just stupid. That's just stupid. That's massively stupid. And again, and Jay Smith says it's only Muslims who say that.
I mean, Jay said that the emperor prints his own religion to prove it's his religion. So,
and,
I mean.
Yeah. And he said that we have the sources that talk about the Muslims wanting to remove the cross of gold. And yet they cannot. They're God haters. They are against Christianity. They want to remove the cross of gold. But these people, they're all Muslims, according to J. Smith, because it's only Muslims who say that they didn't remove the crosses because they couldn't with the people opposing them. And then later on, when they did, that's because they had enough power to, and they put down the uprisings that followed and the war that followed. There was a war and uprisings, and they were able to be victorious on both of those.
Mhm.
And again, Coptics talking about how they replaced the symbol of the cross with the name of the beast. So Muhammad is a messenger of Allah. Either Allah or Muhammad are beasts, according to this Christian. So that is just, it's so irresponsible. And yet they have no awareness of their responsibility here. You can go ahead and continue it.
Okay.
To the next section.
So Tyler says, you see, the Jews made up Muhammad because of the Crusader coins. And it's about as viable as the argument.
Well, just to be clear, those Crusader coins were almost exact copies of Muslim coins, which had that star on it. So therefore, Star of David, they're all Muslim, or they're all Muslim, or Jews.
They're Jews.
So the
Muslims
Jews
are really
along,
Jews.
because they wouldn't have the Star of David unless they were Jews or something. Yeah.
And a couple people asked about the M, whether it was a Roman numeral. I don't know for sure, but I think so. I think
it stands for numus, and it's for the 40 numus coin.
Okay. So
and I have no idea why the 40 numus coin has an M on it, but it does. And I don't know why it's an M. If it's numus, I'm sure there's a reason. I am not an expert in coinage, so I don't know. I just know that the M is on the 40 numus coin.
Okay. Very good. Very good. And in fairness to Jay, but I'll take it back here in a second. On this particular coin, you can't actually really tell that there's crosses on their head. However, there are other images of the same coin that are much clearer, and you can definitely tell they are crosses. So if this is the only image he's ever seen, I could forgive him, but he really should have looked at multiple images of the coin.
Oh, you mean like done research to find out whether or not he's saying false things before he teaches them to people? Should Jay Smith find out whether or not he's falsely teaching before he does it? Well, I would agree. Doesn't seem to be something that he does, though.
Much more subtle, whereas the ones Muawiyah has are not subtle at all. They're on his head, there's on this hand and in this hand, and on the back side there's another cross.
And he has a very high quality image of this particular coin and a much lower quality image of the other one. Yeah, there are clearly crosses. I'm not denying these are crosses.
Yeah. And notice that on the ones where they put in Muhammad's name, they distort the crosses into funkier shapes. Whereas ones where they're not trying to shove Muhammad's name in, they are replicating the crosses more accurately because it was part of the de-Christianization effort on the coin, seeing what they could get away with. And Muawiyah was not able to get away with taking off the symbol of the crosses during his lifetime.
According to Mary, according to two different contemporary sources. But, it's just Muslims making this up.
Above the M. And if there had been riots, they said, if they had ever tried to take the crosses off. Well, what about the word Muhammad? Here's one right here. We're going to show it to you. Look at Muhammad.
How is that a response? Right. So he says it's coming from modern Muslims,
which is just false.
I'm going to assume that's what he actually means, although we don't really know for sure what he means. That's a most generous interpretation. So I'll assume that's what he means. He says that's coming from modern Muslims. Well, there would have been riots if they took it off. And he's like, why is Muhammad's name on there? Did they take the crosses off? Yes or no? Was a statement that they would take riot if they took the crosses off?
There are statements that they did riot when they took the crosses off.
That's what the contemporary sources say, that people rioted because they took the crosses off. And he's like, yeah, but it says Muhammad. Yeah, it says some letters on it. People might not have even known what that meant, or they didn't care. They're like, okay, fine, compromise. As long as you keep our crosses, you can put Muhammad's name on it. How is that a response?
Mim Mim Dal right there at the bottom. That's the Muhammad we're looking for. How can you have Muhammad if you are saying that's Muhammad, as most everybody is saying? How can he?
Because it's literally Muhammad in Arabic. It's written in Arabic letters, It is Mohammed.
Well,
period.
you can get more details on both Mockmed and the coins from other videos. Mary's coin video I've put in the chat here. You can also watch my video on Jay's claim about Mockmed in the Bible, or Jai's live stream where he goes through the plausibility of it being anything else in Arabic. Spoiler alert, no other form of MHMD is attested in Arabic. A couple are theoretically possible, but are unattested, and they'd be like, weird, unusual words. But the claim here, his actual claim isn't whether this is Muhammad or not, although he brings it in as an aside. His claim is that if the Christians were going to riot because you took the crosses off, then they would have surely rioted for putting Muhammad on if it actually means Muhammad.
Did it replace? My question is, did it replace the name of Christ?
Well, if it did, then that would mean something.
No, because the name of Christ was never used on it. Yeah.
Right? If it replaces the city, which in some sense is the authority, okay, fine. They're compromising. They're allowing Muhammad to be the authority for printing the coin. Whatever.
Yeah.
And the average person using this coin is going to recognize the crosses.
Yep.
And they're not going to care about some squiggles at the bottom.
And the symbol of Christianity at this time was the cross, period. It was the cross. As you see on my video here, or my presentation, the numismatic guarantee.
No, we don't
company,
see that because I hadn't pulled your presentation.
If you pull it up, the world's largest grading service said Christ's image did not appear on coinage until the first reign of Justinian II, 350 years after Christianity had become the state religion of the Romans. And an example is shown above. I don't actually have the example. Prior to this,
Justinian invented Christianity. It didn't exist before then.
Clearly. Prior to this, a portrait of the emperor was the usual obverse for most Roman and Byzantine coins. And I didn't pull a picture because it's just a Byzantine coin. But the symbol of Christianity that could have been replaced was what? The cross. That was the only symbol that was expected, not Christ's name, not anything else. So again, the reverse of the numbers always had the denomination and usually the mint in the year. Muhammad's name replaces the mint. It never has a statement about Jesus or Jesus's name.
Mm-hmm.
The Solidus says the victory of Augustus on it. Yet on the basis of Muhammad taking the position of the mint, we're supposed to believe that this means Jesus. So suddenly, there's never been any coin ever in the history of Christianity minted with Jesus's name on it or with Christ's name spelled out on it. Instead, but when Muhammad appears on it, we're supposed to believe that this is Jesus's name.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we supposed to believe this? Because it makes for their silly story. But remember, everybody's named Muhammad and they're all prophets and they're warlords.
Yep.
So there are tons of Muhammads, they're all prophets and warlords, except when it shows up here, it's only Jesus.
Yeah. Whatever story you need to tell, Unrelated, AH Bespoke, can I ask if people can pray for my dad? I had a call from my mom saying he has had a heart attack, is in the hospital. Absolutely. I encourage everyone to pray for AH Bespoke's dad. On a less serious note, way less serious, in fact, back to Jay.
That's mutually exclusive. The Christians would have rioted. So that's not a good reference. What is?
Why, Jay?
Because all of these Christians, these
why would they have rioted?
They're liars.
Every Christian probably would recognize the crosses and see they'd been removed from their coin. But every Christian most certainly would not be able to read the name Muhammad. And even if they could read it, they wouldn't necessarily know what it was in reference to. They might just think it's some other city, right? So the two are not remotely equivalent. And the source one of the two sources about the removal of the coins says that Muhammad is the name of the freaking beast of Revelation. But, they were just, could it be? It was just, must have been Jesus or something.
And keep in mind that the coins that we have match the testimony of the Christians. The Christians say, this is why this happened. This is when this happened. This is how this happened. This is why things didn't happen. And what we have matches that. So the historical record tells a consistent story, and Jay makes up a fairy tale.
And Age Bespoke says that his father's name is Ray. If you prefer, you could say Andy's father, Ray, instead of A.H. Bespoke's father. But, God knows that either way, he doesn't actually care. But if you feel more comfortable using actual names, there you go.
On these coins there, why are there crosses on the front and Mockmed on the back?
Well, I would suggest that this is a reference to Jesus as the Messiah, the Mockmed. So there isn't a contradiction. But imagine the choice.
Pathetic, Mel.
Christians are posed with the option of having no crosses on the coins, or coins with crosses and a false prophet's name on it.
Oh, were they asked? Mel? Did they go, oh, Christians, which would you like? No crosses or one with a name that you can't read? They weren't consulted, Mel. They tried to take the crosses off a number of times by distorting them and messing them up. The Christians refused to take those, and so they snuck on Muhammad's name in a lettering that basically no Christians could read at this time. And if someone told them it meant this, then you would have had to go around telling everyone that it meant this. It would not be something that people would look at in the streets and go, no, I'm not taking this.
Yeah. Does he not know how a riot works?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't know how
or
it
to
works.
put differently, because, riot might be too generic. An uprising against the government works.
Yeah.
Does the government survey people and be like, hey, what would piss you off? Or did they do something that pisses the people off?
And they had already tried to distort and mess up the crosses much more severely than this. This is already a mockery. And this is what's so pathetic. There's a very obvious mockery of the cross here. And they're like, no, these are good crosses. Just pathetic. Clearly they held a Democratic vote. Excellent. All right. Let's keep going.
So cargo crew with this ridiculous standard, but nonetheless, I will meet it. You have to explain it, meaning Muhammad's existence, like you would to a 5-year-old. That is the principle. So if you can't explain it that in a way that a 5-year-old would accept, then he didn't exist. Well, here's a way that a 5-year-old would understand. Okay. Muhammad, was a bad guy who came and pretended to represent God, but he didn't. His followers then were really bad people and waged war against people. And we know this because those people wrote down stuff about Muhammad and their own actions. Wow. I met your standard. How stupid. Imagine that. Imagine saying to an actual historian, if you can't say your complex ideas about the political environment that allowed Julius Caesar to become emperor when the country was founded on the principle of no emperor, no absolute rulers, then it didn't happen.
Yep. Very, very childish. Very ridiculous. All right.
For the
Let's
coins
continue
without
on.
crosses rather than a blasphemous coin, if that's who is being referred to.
Yeah.
I think it's like as clear as day that the coin that would cause the most problems would be false prophet in association with the cross. I think that would be far.
Yes,
Oh, he thinks
Mel
it's as clear as
thinks
day.
it's his feelings. So we need to throw out testimony of actual historical figures because Mel had a thought. He had a feeling. Mel's feelings are valid and true. They're a better guide than actual historical testimony. It's not how we do history. We don't go, well, I feel this way. And then I snigger and grin and smirk and
Can
go,
you bring-
aren't I clever? And
Can you bring
again,
the Crusader coin back up, Mary? And then
Oh.
you finish your thought.
yeah, it'll be
I'm going to give you
way
my
back here.
feelings.
You're going to give me the feelings about the Crusader coin. And keep in mind that this Crusader coin actually calls one of the Muslim leaders the commander of the faithful. So, and this is a Muslim style coin with Muslim style invocation with Star of David that the Muslims used. So give your feelings about this. What you feel is super clear.
Well, I feel that if the Crusaders were actually trying to retake the holy city of Jerusalem, and they were actually following the edict of the Pope to capture the Holy Land, and they were actually fully devoted to Jesus and capturing the city, the last thing in the world they would ever do is make a coin ascribing their leadership to the people who they are trying to overthrow and have successfully overthrown. So therefore, the Crusades never happened. It's a pure myth.
There we go. That's about appropriate. Oh, wait, it's this one that has the commander of the faithful. That one says something else. I can't read any of these.
Well, whatever.
Yeah,
It
here we
doesn't
go.
matter.
Here's another one. Yep. So...
And I didn't even reference the star date. So clearly this is a Jewish conspiracy. This is a Jewish conspiracy to make Christians look bad by pretending there was a crusade against the Muslims who Christians have always been friendly with.
Yep. The Imam, Al-Mutasir Billah, the Abbasid Caliph, Abu Jafar, the victorious commander of the faithful. So it's calling Muslims the faithful here. And guess what? A crusader minted this. And the actual exclamation mark in this is actually from my original site because it's a fairly rare coin, but it existed. It exists. It's a crusader coin that calls the Imam, the Abbasid Caliph, the authority, and that he's commander of the faithful. That means that he is a leader of the believers. So clearly, it's calling the Muslims the believers.
Hey, Mary, I should have said clearly Islam didn't exist yet, right? So we're now in the 13th century. Islam still doesn't exist because
we have Crusaders.
The Crusades are really just two different Christian sects warring with one another. That's why they describe the non-Muslims, but what you think are Muslims, as commanders of the faithful, because they acknowledge they are Christians of a different type, and they say our beef with you is political. It's not about religion.
I mean, that's about as appropriate as what he's doing, and as responsible as what he's doing. It's exactly the same thing. You're making up a story, telling your feelings about it, because, and again, during the same period of time, roughly, they're still minting all of these Zoroastrian religious icons out in the Sasanian area. They are attacking Zoroastrianism less than Christianity. Now, why would it be that they're distorting and messing up the cross far more and adding Muhammad's name far more in the Christian areas than in the Zoroastrian areas? Oh, because I hate Christianity even more. There you go. So... Oy. All right, go ahead and play. He's going to go more about his... And notice how smug they are, how certain they are of their Mockmed, which is not a word like in any language, their Mockmed theory. Just watch.
Well, I mean, when you put enough pins in your little magic wall and you put enough strings between them, you convince yourself that your theory is so brilliant and it must be true no matter what the evidence says.
More provocative for Christians than merely the absence of a cross, because for centuries Christians didn't even have an image of Jesus on the coins. It was only in the 7th century that they introduced the idea of having the face of Jesus on the coin. So they would have been okay. They wouldn't be very happy about the absence of crosses, but they certainly would have been a whole lot better than having a false prophet next to the coins, or next to the crosses on the coins.
Absolutely. So you cannot have both. And
once again, what makes you think they recognized that this was a name of anyone, let alone that it was the name of a specific false prophet that probably the average Christian hadn't even heard of?
they're contradictory unless they both are saying the same thing. And Mohammed is a well-known name, and it is
No, it wasn't.
new. It's been around since.
Well, wait a minute. It's a well-known name. Well, I think he means title of Jesus, but he said name.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, everybody's called Mockmed, remember? Mockmed did everyone.
I know. It just earlier in this video, 5 minutes ago, he said there was tons of people named Muhammad. Now he's saying everyone knows that Mockmed is the title of Jesus. I think, even though he said name, I'm pretty sure that's where he's going.
It's 1400 BC with the Ugarites. It's in Ugaritic.
Yep,
It's in the Bible in 1000 BC. My goodness, it's 11.
Yeah, it's a very well-known name in Ugaritic, right, Mary?
It doesn't exist at all. All right, let's finish up this little thought, and then we'll go through the actual material.
Well, no. The word exists in Ugaritic.
Right, the word does, but it's not name ever, and it's not a title ever. Let's continue on and wait till he finishes this thought completely.
Mockmed, the anointed one, the altogether lovely, the praised one. It's a title. It's nothing more than a title.
All right, stop. So it is nothing more than a title in the Old Testament. He just said that. He just said it's nothing more than a title in the Old Testament. The altogether lovely. Let's bring up my thing. And again, Thaddeus has done a complete.
Yep, I'll put a link to my video.
Yep, put the link to your video. So he says that it is nothing more than a title, and it means the anointed one, the altogether lovely, and the praised one. Are these synonyms, or is J. Smith storytelling again? I had Michael Brown's statement where he's like making fun of them, but I forgot to send that to you, where he's making fun of how ridiculous that is when a Muslim makes it. Who's making the Muslim argument here, Thaddeus?
This is Jay. I mean,
Jay.
Interestingly, and I do intend to do a short probably on this at some point, and I'm feeling very motivated right now because this is the argument that drives me crazy the most of any argument. But Jay, when 10 years ago, give or take, said this is a ridiculous argument that no one should ever make. When he said you do not do this to our Bible. Yeah. You don't do this.
Disrespectful, right? And it was
actually, yes, exactly. Those are his exact words. You do not do this to our Bible.
And then he did it to our Bible.
And then, like maybe 4-ish years ago, 3-ish or something ago, like that, he had on. I don't remember if it was Red Judaism or if it was one of the other freaks. It wasn't Mel, but he had on someone who was arguing that Mockmed was a title of Jesus, and he's like, the funny thing is that this is kind of like the reverse of the Muslim argument, because they say that Muhammad is in Song of Solomon because it has those letters. How silly of them to do such a thing. And then somehow he adopts the argument.
Right. So anyway, I don't know whether you can find what Michael Brown said about it.
I mean, probably not instantaneously.
But it was during his debate on this. But again, he's pulling out of this entire thing. His legs, so his head is of the purest gold. It's this huge description of the beloved. The beloved who is almost always the body parts of the beloved are almost always given the attribution of being the church of Christ, not Christ himself. Christ himself is the head. So the head of gold would be Christ, but that's not a title. It's a description. His eyes are like doves. That would be a description. not a title. If you don't, you can never find in Christian writing the dove-eyed one and then go, that's another name for Jesus. You never find that.
Uh-huh.
You know, he's called Prince of Peace. That is a title of Jesus. Prince of Peace is a title of Jesus. You find it self-standing on its own. It refers to Jesus outside of any other context. Prince of Peace, you know that's Jesus.
And
Dove Eyes
there's
is not a title of Jesus.
There's generally only one title that we transliterate, and that's Messiah.
Yeah, that's Messiah. That's it.
Generally isn't any other. And
Everything else
clearly
is
in the first
translated.
century, they didn't even do that because
Yep.
Christ is the Greek
Yep.
word that means the same thing. Christ equals Messiah. They mean the same thing. So clearly in the first century, they weren't even transliterating Messiah from Hebrew. But we're supposed to believe they transliterated this one particular phrase from Song of Solomon, which in context is clearly about the lover of the story. But because many centuries later, Christians metaphorically applied this to Jesus, or symbolically, or typologically, however you want to put it exactly, applied it to Jesus.
Well, it's the man, and it was from the beginning read typologically. It was read typologically, but it was read typologically such that
centuries after it was
body
written. I meant, Mary. I meant
okay.
centuries after after it was written, and Christ Messiah had been translated. They decided to go back and transliterate the Hebrew in this one particular way, even though they were using Christ for Messiah. They said, no, this one is just too important. We just got to transliterate this one. We can't call Jesus the lovely one in our own language. We got to call him Mockmed.
And again, it isn't even the lovely one. It is his
I know it's
mouth.
altogether lovely, but
and he is altogether lovely. Like that, that's just not a thing. So if you look at the meanings again, he claims that means the anointed one, the altogether lovely, and the praised one. Only one of those is true, and it's not a title. Beloved, desire, goodly, lovely, pleasant. Desire, desirable thing, precious thing, pleasant, precious one, precious treasures, precious treasures, because it means delightful, therefore a delight, an object of affection or desire. So desirable.
But instead of translating it, it could be lovely one since applied to person, but more properly delightful or lovely or beautiful or something like that. Instead of calling Jesus beautiful or lovely or delightful or the delight or the love or whatever, no, they got to transliterate it. They call him Mockmed. What the hell, man? What the hell? This is the stupidest crap I've ever heard in my freaking life. And yes, I'm very upset
just
about this
lying
argument.
that it means anointed one and praised one. Just lying. Straight up lying. It means desire, precious, beloved, desirable thing. The root form of the more root form of it means to desire, covet, take pleasure in, to delight in. So here, according to him, these are all titles for Jesus. So we will say anointed one, according to J. Smith, is appropriate in all of these. So whatever, they will take away whatever is desirable in your eyes. They will destroy they will take away what is Messiah in your eyes, the anointed one in your eyes. They will destroy all the anointed one vessels. All of our anointed ones are laid waste. His hand has been upon all of her anointed ones. They have slain all the anointed ones. I am about to take from you the anointed one of your eyes, Ezekiel's own wife. The other ones are objects.
Yeah. So as you can see, almost all these references are negative. And in some contexts, you could actually say that, it's a false Messiah or something along those lines. It would be ridiculous. But in other cases, right, because the object in view isn't, explicit. But in other cases, it's explicitly a gold object or whatever. And the word is used as, it's technically a noun, but it's used as what we would call an adjective to describe the gold object. So it's the messianic gold object or the anointic gold object that it would be in view. It's just utter nonsense. Nonsense.
Apparently here, all unborn children here, the children will be slain, and even those who are in the womb will be killed. The precious ones, well, those are the anointed ones, because all children are the anointed one. Like it's
Mhm.
ridiculous. Now, if you actually check the Ugaritic lexicon that he's basing this nonsense on, it's just a lie. He's like, oh, it means that Ugaritic. No, it means to
Well,
desire.
hold on, Mary. Not he's basing it on. Okay, because Jay Smith has not read this Ugaritic lexicon.
No.
Let's not say that Jay has lied about the lexicon. What he's lied about, or what he's done, I should say, is he's repeated other people's lies without bothering to check on them.
Well, I mean, he has to know that it is not a title, meaning the anointed one, if he reads his Bible. So the
in the Bible,
are,
yeah.
Either
so he is lying.
Yeah.
I will agree he's lying about the Bible, because I think he has
Yep.
actually read the Bible.
He either knows
he
that
knows
this is untrue. Mhm.
he knows that none of these passages could be a couple of them you could possibly voice anointed in, but only in a negative sense. Every
Yep.
one of these is negative. Every single one other than Song of Solomon is negative in the context, because they are things that people are, well, I guess the one, one or two are neutral. A couple are neutral.
Temples, though it's just precious things that are being destroyed over and over again.
Yeah, I know,
like
but the things are being destroyed, right? Is what I meant by the negative. So so a couple of them are neutral. None of them are about messiahs. None of them are about like prophets of future people, or the long-awaited people, or whatever. Like in some cases, the things being destroyed are being destroyed because of the people's rebellion, right?
Yeah, but that's true even of the vessels of the temple.
Right,
the vessels of the temple.
They're being destroyed. People view them as precious objects, but they're not precious objects to God, right? They're insignificant, nothing to God, and he's destroying them because of their rebellion. He's taking away the things that they think are important when they're not the things that are important. And yet, supposedly, these are all about Jesus, and even in the Ugaritic, it was about anointed ones.
And let's look at the Ugaritic. Here we're looking at the HMD without the M. It's a verb, to desire. Compared to Hebrew and Phoenician, to desire, to covet. They have Akkadian here that's similar as well. Then in Old South Arabian, OSA, it means praise. And in Arabic, it means praise. In contrast to Ugaritic, where it only means desire. South Arabian and Arabic, praise. Ugaritic, northern languages, desire. Again, to desire. And here are some examples. Ardently desired. Another one. So-and-so, she desired. The virgin. So-and-so desired her. Compare this to the one with the M. So, desired, desirable, precious. Again, this is a northern meaning. Has nothing to do with chosen, has nothing to do with anointed. Anyone who says otherwise is lying. So, it is a Hebrew, and that says compared to Hebrew, precious object. Aramaic, something desirable. So that's compared to, desired, desirable, precious. Desired for its cedars. The hills bring you the most precious gold, etc., etc. Those are your two versions.
Yep, I looked at every place it occurs in context in the extant Ugaritic language. Every time it is describing gold or gems.
Yep, and Volker
or trees, Gold, gems, or trees.
Gems or trees in Ugaritic. It's gold, gems, trees. That's the only thing that's ever described. And other forms are like for pretty girl. So Volker Pop here is just lying. I want you to listen carefully to how he lies to you. Jay Smith repeats this because he lacks the discernment to tell this is a lie.
For context, vulgar pop is where these arguments ultimately arise
Come from. Yes. So this is their research.
They're not coming from Jay necessarily.
Well, in his own form.
Okay, so Jay, here, let me clarify. Here's what happens. Crazy. Well, I won't say crazy. People who will have imaginations speculate, and they craft a story, and then Jay, third hand, hears about the story they crafted, and then he further crafts the story into his own imagination, and he doesn't do any research. He certainly didn't read the Ugaritic lexicon. He almost certainly hasn't read Volker Pop either. He's heard about him third hand. And when you go to Volker, I don't know if I would use lying. I'll let Mary describe it, and then I'll give you my own impression of what exactly he's doing here. All right, go ahead, Mary. You're still on mute if you didn't realize. Oh, Mary might have stepped away for a second. So why she's doing that? From Joshua Wooden. I keep hearing J. Smith has been involved in academia and heard Smith wanted to publish academic work since 95, but never has. He does have academic where at. Yeah, as far as I can tell, I mean, he must have published a dissertation. I don't know what his dissertation was on.
I've looked.
But the problem is he's got such a generic name. It would be very difficult to find without knowing the subject.
Presumably, we know where he went, so we ought to be, and we know about when he graduated, so it ought to be easy to find if they had a really easy. In the U.S., it would be very easy to find.
Yeah, often dissertations are just like stored in the university library, and they're not.
Most of them are digitized now, back to the 90s, so it's a lot easier.
Anyway, we haven't been able to locate it, but he must have published a dissertation. As near as I can tell, however, he has not published a single peer-reviewed article in his entire academic career from the time he got his PhD until now. And he has, at numerous points, made public statements about how he's about to publish a book. He's working on a book. He wants to publish it in academia because he's finally finalized his theories. And then he has, with the debate of Raymond, not 2 months ago or so, he said, we're not even close to being ready to publish these ideas. They're still in their infancy. So, he's constantly crafting these stories, but as near as I can tell, he hasn't published anything ever other than his dissertation, which he must have published.
Yeah. So here is Volker Pop's nonsense. Within the text, the term Muhammad can also be found. It is connected to gold. Connected to gold. No, it's not connected to gold. It's just used as a description of gold in a couple of texts. And possibly even only in one text, for heaven's sake, and refers to the best selected quality of gold. That is a lie. It has nothing to do with selected. How do you select a quality of gold? That is the dumbest thing I have ever said.
No. Look, see, this is at its highest level of purity, as if that was something you could tell in ancient times. Oh, this gold is 99% pure.
Well, no, you can. You can tell how pure it is because you had touchstones back then, but you purified the gold. You don't select pure gold.
I know, you just melt it out.
Like the idea that it's selected, that you have this piece of gold and that piece of gold and you pick the one that's pure. No, you refine it repeatedly to make it as pure as you want it, which is actually they can't do.
Yeah, so I was I guess assuming like post extraction process, because there'll still be trace elements.
So you do post-extraction process, just to be clear. Post-extraction process, you can use a touchstone. That's what touchstone comes from. And you draw onto the touchstone with the gold, and it leaves a streak that indicates its level of purity. And purity was important. But you got purity not by like picking gold, but by refining it to the purity you want.
Selected is the word he wants, right?
Yeah, he wants selected. He's using selected, but selected.
The purity is actually irrelevant, but he's saying, they're just selecting it because that's not what the text don't say that, right?
Yeah,
I've read
the text don't say selected.
They say the finest gold, or the best gold,
or the most desirable.
It doesn't say anything. Yeah, it's not about selected.
So here is Segert's standard grammar, which calls it desirable gold. And the hills the mountains will bring you much silver, and the hills desirable gold. It just means desirable. That's it. Segert's translation just means desirable, precious thing.
Which, gold is just desirable in its own right. So it's just like it's not telling you like this is a special quality of this particular gold.
That in this case, it is not at all saying that it's just precious gold. Gold is precious. Gordon's rendering is a bit goofy already because he's rendering it the best or choicest of gold. And it's the same passage that Gordon chose to render as the best choicest of, rather than just desirable, which would probably be a better rendering. So Gordon makes a slightly goofy rendering.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so desirable is probably most literal.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, keep in mind that these texts are where the word meanings are derived from. It's not like there's some dictionary, right? So people are reading, taking these texts and trying to determine what the author meant. So, you know, in context, it could definitely mean best, desirable,
or the
better, maybe. The problem is that best is comparative inherently.
Yes.
And there's nothing
and
comparative
there's not actually
about
comparative here. And so is, and notice choicest of here is being given as a synonym of best. Gordon has no thought whatsoever that there's anything being picked out of a line. You can talk about the choicest of this, the choicest of that, just as a synonym best in English. But because Volker Pop is completely illegitimate as a historian or an analyzer of anything, he then declares
in this case,
that
it's just language. It doesn't have anything to do with history.
He's just gonna
analyze
make something
language.
up. Hang on.
Yep.
That the literal sense is best, selected. So he's going from choicest, which is just a synonym for best, and falsely claiming that means picked, selected, which is just false. And then going to choicest of, and then chosen, which is not the same meaning. Just because you have the same root in English doesn't mean it has the same meaning.
Well, yeah, because he wants it to be selected, right? He wants it to be selected,
and then he needs
chosen, similar idea.
Chosen one. Then he goes, even the fathers of Islamic tradition still take Muhammad to mean selected or chosen one. No, they don't.
Yeah.
No, they don't.
Okay, that
and he
part
doesn't put a quote there because it's false. So but
let me just reread this sentence for you, okay? For the audience. Just on the surface, without any Mary's added analysis or anything, just think about how ridiculous this statement is. Okay, so Sagard's translation of the form desired precious thing, together with Gordon's rendering the best choices of gold, show that the literal sense of the word MHMND in Ugaritic was best selected or choicest chosen. Is that how language is? Does that make sense to anyone ever? Let's take two different people's rendering of one word, combine them together, and then make a conclusion about what that word really meant based on their choice of English translation. That you could do one of two things, right? You could either just take the standard gloss from, if you're responsible, you can do one of two things. You can either just take the gloss from the whoever you want, right? Or you could go to the text and try to determine what the word likely meant in its context, which is ultimately what the same
keep in mind, just to be clear, he's taking it from one particular translation of one person in one context rather than the overall meaning.
Right? Yeah. Combining it with another person and then playing association thereon. But the only responsible thing you could do is either take the gloss or go to the text and try to determine the meaning, because ultimately the gloss comes from the text. It's not like there is some other source, right? The texts are the only source of our understanding of what the word means. And you can do one or the other, but you can't do this, where you say, well, in this case, one of the possible English translations he said was choicest, and choicest in English. Sorry.
Whoops. There.
Sorry about that. And in English, choicest means something similar to selected. And in English, selected means something similar to the chosen one. Therefore, it meant chosen one in Ugaritic. This is the most ridiculous freaking nonsense imaginable.
And this is the foundation of the argument. This is the foundation. This nonsensical, incoherent rambling is the foundation, and it is absolute nonsense. The literal meaning is desired, desirable, or precious. So,
and one thing I just want to point out that just the methodology was, here's what some people said about it, therefore I will make imaginations about what they really meant when they said that.
Yep. And to be clear, in the complete Syriac and Aramaic database for Jewish and Christian literature and high and late antiquity. This word never means praised one. But it's related to praise in Arabic and South Arabian only. It also never refers to a human name or a title. It's never used in a messianic context. And the Muhammad form itself occurs only once ever and is a rare word. And guess what? Always means desirable, precious, desired thing. That's all it means ever. And yet they just feel free to make false claims with no sources.
Yeah.
They could have gone to the source and checked it. So
I know that it's probably not viable for the most people in the audience. These texts aren't easily available. But if you really want, I can send you the Ugaritic text and you can go to the original context and you can just, I'll leave that one word untranslated. And then you can tell me how this could possibly mean anointed one.
Right. All right. And if you'll finish up, it's about time for me to go. If you will finish up, that little section there, that's all that I was going to cover because we have a kind of a short day today.
Just the rest on MHMD, basically, is what you want me to cover?
Yeah, the rest of HMMD, that's it. And you can talk to whoever else. Why do we reject Muhammad? Because there are many, many false prophets who claim to come with final words that were all stupid and false. And Muhammad is one of the dumbest ones. The Quran is one of the dumbest books produced by false prophets that were ever produced, and one of the most obviously stupidly false and incoherent, where all the claims that he's making inside of it are just untrue. So that would be
technically didn't ask why you reject Muhammad, but I get what you're saying. You reject the Quran because who brought it? Good enough.
Well, no, I'm saying that the Quran is the stupidest book. But
you said why do we reject Muhammad, and then you brought in the Quran as well.
Well, I mean, we don't reject the verbatim word of God. There is no word of God there. We reject the false.
But Muhammad isn't the verbatim word of God, even according to Muslims and whatever. I thought this was very funny, though. He said, is it arrogance, hatred, brainwashing, societal pressure, etc.? Yeah, that's a very good description of the Quran. Arrogance, hatred, brainwashing, societal pressure, etc. Mary already answered, but let me answer as well. Let me count the reasons. All right, why do you reject the Quran as the verbatim word of God? Let me tell you, okay? Let's start with grammatical errors. The Quran is filled with grammatical errors. Would the all-knowing creator of the universe create an incoherent grammatical mess, or would that be something that a human being would do? Then let's go to the testimony of people of Muhammad's own time who are saying, this is nothing but the tales of the ancient. We've heard all this nonsense before. Or we're saying, I could create something much better than this. So there you got that. If the people at the time thought it was garbage nonsense, obviously not the followers of Muhammad. They were bought in by arrogance, hatred, brainwashing, and societal pressure, but the rest of society thought it was garbage. That would probably indicate that this is not like some magical verbatim word of God that's so beautiful. Now, another reason, there are numerous places where you can't tell who the speaker is. Why is Allah so confusing? And then there's the idea of abrogation. Allah contradicts himself. Oh, I mean, he abrogates himself, but this is his final eternal word. Then there's all this special revelation intended just for Muhammad and his own time. Yet this is supposedly the eternal word of God written before any human being was ever created. He has responses to insults that Muhammad were making, or people were making about Muhammad in the 7th century, and nothing about any other time. Now that's pretty weird. Then there's the fact that the Quran copies from, at least ideas from, not necessarily literal word by word, but copies ideas from pre-existent pagan legends, pre-existent Christian legends, pre-existent Jewish legends, things which no one ever took as literal history, yet the Quran copies those ideas, says they're literal history. Oh, that's another major problem with the Quran. Then there's the fact that just reading the Quran, it's a literary disaster. That 99% of all humans who've ever lived could write a better story than what you find in the Quran. Yet the Quran asserts that it is the most beautiful writing ever created, and no one could write anything like it. It says that no man or jinn could write anything like it. Yet one of the surahs is written entirely like jinn, an internal contradiction. It affirms the truth, the inspiration, preservation, and continuing authority of the Torah and gospel, yet it contradicts those, which is a dilemma that cannot be avoided. Either those things are wrong and corrupted, or they're not. Either way, the Quran is false, either because it made the false claim that they aren't wrong and aren't contradicted, or because it contradicts them. Then there's the claim from Allah that if it was from anyone other than Allah, it would contain much contradiction, which is logically equivalent to saying anything that is without contradiction comes from Allah. But that's certainly not true. There's thousands of books written by human beings every day, most of which don't have any internal contradiction. Dr. Seuss books are both better in terms of style, better in terms of rhyme, better in terms of poetry, and don't contain any internal contradictions. Therefore, they must be the inspired literal word of God, according to the Quran's own argument. Unless you are willing to say that Hop on Pop and Green Eggs and Ham are inspired words of God, then you have a completely incoherent book. And I could go on and on and on. And notice every single one of those arguments was about the internal claims of the Quran. None of them had anything to do with societal pressure or hatred or anything else. They were all about the Quran's internal self. All right. Let's finish up this section and then wrap up for the day.
Ahmed earlier, and then the time of Muhammad himself, which is fascinating because what is also coming out, and they're not really answering this, and that is the enormous long dates between when this Muhammad died and.
Okay, so actually we were already at the end of the section. Mary thought there was a little more, but we actually had ended right at the end of the section on Mockmed. So preview for what's coming up next time, or at least some later date, we'll talk about the supposed gaps. We'll talk about these supposed long gaps at some point, but that's a different subject. So we were actually already at the end. So once again, if you want it more on the Mockmed argument, I encourage you to check out my video. I'll put that in the chat again. And I definitely encourage you to check out Mary's new video, which is on the language of the Quran. Jay Smith claims that the Quran is written in the wrong language. And it is, in fact, not written in the wrong language. While not perhaps 100% decisive and proof by itself, I wouldn't argue that. I don't think any Muslim would argue it either. The Quran is consistent. Research has shown that the Quran is consistent with the claims about it, that it was probably delivered orally first, i.e., it was revealed orally, which, by the way, that's another problem for our Muslim friend, that the Quran seems to not be a writing from an all-knowing God, but in fact, 7th century oration. That is a problem as well, but it is consistent with the claims of the Muslims. It's consistent with the claims of how it came about. So Jay is just mistaken. Yeah, again, either he is lying or he is repeating other people's lies without bothering to check up on them, or he's crafted a story in his mind that doesn't have any basis in the things he was told. He believes it, therefore he's not technically speaking lying, but is speaking on truth. When it comes to MHMD, Mockmed, and the Bible, I will say that I feel he is lying because he has spoken against this very idea in the past. He knows that While he'll say it's found in the Bible 12 times, he knows that those cannot mean anointed one in context in the vast majority of them, and none of them would be considered prophecies or descriptions of Jesus. None of them are in passages applied to Jesus, even typologically, other than Song of Solomon. So he knows it's not true. He knows it's not true, and he's repeating it anyway because it fits with his current little story. Why he's doing this, I don't know. I don't think he's doing it for fame and fortune. I don't attribute malice to him. I think if I had to guess, I would say he's doing this because he thinks it brings people to Christianity. He thinks it brings Muslims out of Islam and brings them to Christianity. The problem is, so Tawhid Islam. I'll finish my thoughts on Jay, but he says he's leaving, so I want to bring it up. We will see on Judgment Day. It's clear who's right or wrong. Real game starts after death. I am out now. I mean, this is just sad and pathetic. Why would you want to wait till Judgment Day to figure out if you're right or wrong when it's too late to do anything about it? I mean, if you want to, that's your choice. I can't stop you. But a normal, sane, rational person would absolutely want to know the truth before they die. And they would want to make sure, do everything humanly possible to assume they're on the true path. You don't want to? That's your choice. I personally care very greatly whether I end up in burning hellfire for all eternity, or I go to heaven, or something else happens, right? Because there are other possibilities, obviously, logically speaking, and found in other belief systems. I care a great deal whether I'm on the truth or not, but whether you care or not, I can't force you to. Yeah, and if you think you know the truth, why are you like, well, we'll see. Oh, I can't answer any of your arguments. We'll see. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, be sure to like the video.
Let's up those numbers!
Of likes. Appreciate that. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for all the birthday wishes over the weekend. Finishing up my thoughts on Jay, I think he believes this will lead people to Christianity. I think at some level he knows what he's saying is not true. But he's saying, I'm not really saying it's true. I'm just putting out ideas and challenging Muslims, and they should be responding to these Muslims. And if that was what he was actually doing, I probably wouldn't even comment. And if he was just saying, well, here's some interesting stuff to consider. We don't really know. You can't really know about history to the highest degree and whatnot. I would disagree, but I probably wouldn't comment. But instead of that, what he's actually doing is he's going around and saying stuff that is blatantly, unambiguously false. And I have a problem with that. Even if it does, theoretically speaking, lead some people to Christ, lead some people to the truth, I still have a problem with it. I do not believe that it is ever acceptable to bring people to the truth of Christianity through lies, or through deception, or through bribery, or or through violence, or intimidation, or many other ways that theoretically could bring someone into the Christian fold. I believe that the truth should stand up to scrutiny, that if Christians are not on the truth, then they should not be trying to force truth by some other means. And a couple of people were trying to trigger the bot. The bot had crashed. I just restarted it. You can trigger it now if you want. Mary's back. Well, you didn't miss anything, Mary. We were actually at the end. You didn't realize about it. We were actually at the very end there. So I was just wrapping up. Good, faithful Christians believe that Christianity is the truth. And you don't bring people to the truth through lies, deception, untruth. false statements, overconfidence, exaggeration, hyperbole, whatever you want to call it. You don't need to do that. Does Jay Smith actually want Muslim interaction, or is this out for clicks? Well, he hasn't really shown any. Okay, I'll let you decide what the answer to this is, but I will tell you some facts that I know. Multiple Muslims have challenged him to debate on the topics or offered refutations to his topics. They are not top apologists, super popular people. In fact, in most cases, they're just random Muslims who no one has ever heard of. Jay has declined to engage with them. Those are facts. You can draw from that what you want. Happy birthday. Your birthday is over. Happy 26th birthday. I've turned yet another new age this year. Yeah, I got it, Mary. I got that you're just in the chat. You weren't wanting to rejoin. But either way, I was already wrapping up. We did, in fact, get through the section of the video you wanted to. Truth attracts believers. Absolutely. We do not attract people to Christianity, and we should not attract people to Christianity, and we should not attempt to attract people to Christianity through untruth. All right. Thank you all for joining us today. Appreciate it. We'll be back on Friday with Mary to probably review a Muslim debate. Looks like Lipiano had another debate. He was very popular last time. We might review him, and we had specific requests to review more of him, so we might do that, or we might review something else. But we will be back on Friday. I might stream by myself either tomorrow or Thursday. I don't have firm plans on that as of yet. I need to work on a new video. At this exact moment, I'm very highly motivated to do more on Jay Smith and his ridiculous Mockmed argument. It would be a short if I did, since I already did a scripted video on it. I could really use a topic that people actually want to see, though. And, these streams are not popular. These ones on Jay Smith, whether they're standalone videos or they're live streams, they're not popular. They damage my channel. I'm not saying that for sympathy or whatever, but they do, in fact, damage my channel. Not as many people watch them, which then sends a signal to YouTube that the recent videos were not good, and it's less likely to recommend the next one. Now, it only takes one video to overcome that. You have one video that's performing well, and then YouTube's like, okay, I'll try this one on more people. And then it works well, and then it's like, okay, he's back on track. I'll recommend his videos again. It is a thing, but these videos are too important, right? They're too important, so I'm doing them anyway. More on Jay Smith or more on Jay Smith. You decide. I just present the facts. You decide. Thank you all once again for tuning in. Be back soon in one way or another. Exact plans to be determined, so just look out for those. Until we meet again, we'll close out with a prayer from Pastor Jake.
Pray this ceaselessly. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me.